Hello everyone, this is Leo from the Monkeys Making Misplaced channel, and today we're moving on to the final episode of the How to Play Cardfight Vanguard Overdress. This has been a awesome thing to do. I actually really enjoyed working on this. So for me, this has been great. I hope some people enjoy it, right? I hope that I'm not the only one who thinks that I think this was a pretty good thing, and it might help new players in the future. But regardless of that, let's move on to the final step, which is understanding the cards, right? Right now, we have no real understanding of the cards. We just kind of like the design, maybe. We just kind of like the effect, but we kind of understand the game, right? But we want to move on to understanding them and knowing what each card does, what the things on the cards mean, things like that, right? Obviously, I can't go over everything or every card in the game and every archetype or everything like that, but I'm going to give you a general gist of everything that you might need to kind of get your understand or your head wrapped around what cards can do, right? So first off, we're going to start with understanding just what the cards are. I've included a little thing here which will show you kind of what some of the basic cards, right? We have normal units, trigger units, set orders, right? And you will notice on this, the number 2 doesn't appear. That is because in Overdress, there's no such thing as clans. That is something that is exclusive to um, Cardfight Vanguard V Premium and Premium, although there are encounter cards which do have a clan, but it's not as relevant in Overdress as it is in the other formats because in Overdress, you have a general nation instead of just a clan, right? The clans used to belong to a nation, but now the nation is just the overarching thing. So clans not going to be really important unless you're playing an encounter deck, and even then, only certain cards really care about it, so you should be fine. But if you do like an encounter deck, it would tell you, hey, maybe you would just like that clan, maybe you would enjoy playing V Premium or Premium. Those formats are a little too complicated for me to do a quick video like these, a quick video series like this on it. But if people like this kind of content, I might try doing it. Well, first off, now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's start with normal units. These units are pretty much the entirety of your deck, right? You can only play 16 triggers, so the rest have to be something else, right? That's these normal units. They all have different abilities. There's different grades. They are grade zeros. Trigger units aren't only the only units that can be grade zeros. And specifically in Java's case, they play Trickstar, which is a grade zero that isn't a trigger unit, right? And there are grade 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 10, which I think you've probably already seen it. I talked about it, which is Dragon Tree, um, which is a very fun deck. But now we're gonna try going into understanding the things on a normal unit, right? So first off, before we do that, I want to talk about Sentinel units. These units have a shield value of 0, and you might be thinking, well, uh, the card you just showed, the grade 3, didn't have a shield value. Why is that different than this one? And for that, it's because Sentinel units are essentially perfect guards. They can nullify an attack regardless of power, hence why their shield is 0, because it doesn't matter what the number is, right? It stops any attack. And because of how strong that effect is, you're only allowed to run 4 cards with the Sentinel ability. Currently, we only have 2 types, technically, one of them being an order and the other one being this Sentinel here. There are different ones. There are what some people would consider the bad Sentinels, and then some that would consider the good Sentinels. The only difference, if you look on the card on screen, it has this effect that says if your hand has 2 or more cards, discard a card from it, right? The bad Sentinels don't have the line of text, so you will have to discard a card regardless, right? But if in the case where you would only have 2 of these, you wouldn't have to discard for either of them if they were the only 2 cards in your hand. But that's a little bit more nuanced, and you'll probably learn that as you play. Next, we go into the skill icons. We have 4 skill icons in Overdress. The first one being boost. This is primarily on grade 0s and 1s, and it allows that unit to give power to the unit in front of it, right? That's why there's a front row and the back row. Units in the back row have the ability to boost, and they give the power to the units in the front row. Intercept. This ability is primarily on grade 2s. I don't think there's any units that don't. There are any units outside of grade 2 that have this ability just intrinsically. There are units that can gain it, but intercepts allows the units, if they're in the front row and they are a rear guard, to intercept onto the guardian circle and protect your vanguard. So they'll add their shield value to it, right? Then we have twin drive. Twin drive allows your vanguard to perform 2 drive checks instead of 1, right? Which almost all the other grade 0s, 1s, and 2s only have single drives, right? So twin drive allows you to get 2 cards instead of 1. And then triple drive, pretty self-explanatory. It just lets you drive check 3 cards instead of the normal 1 or 2 in grade 3's cases. Usually grade 3's have twin drive and grade 4's have triple drive. All right. Then we move on to the persona ride. This is the icon for persona ride. A persona ride will just happen if you ride a unit with the same name as your current vanguard and it has the symbol, and it gives you a permanent 10k to the front row for the turn and lets you draw another card. It's a very strong ability. If you're able to do it, it can give you extra power for your almost your entire turn. So if you can do it, you should try to. Then we have the types of effects, those being continuous, activated, and automatic. Pretty much all normal units will have something like, even certain triggers we will talk about in a bit have these abilities as well. Continuous just means that they're active whenever the skill itself says it is, right? An example of a continuous ability would be something like, if your opponent has less than 1 rear guard, this unit gains plus 5k. That would be something that would be a continuous ability. An act ability requires you to pay some sort of cost to activate it, right? These can only be activated in the main phase. An example of that would be like your Vanguard having the ability to retire a rear guard to gain power. That would be an example of an act ability. And then auto ability is something that happens as a trigger response, right? So certain auto abilities would be like, when this unit is placed on rear guard, something happens, right? That would be an auto ability because it happens upon a trigger. Then we move on how to pay for these costs, right? And there's 2 major ways that you pay for costs, which being Counterblast and Soul Blast. Counterblast is just the act of turning a card from your damage from face up to face down, right? And then Soul Blast is the act of taking a card from under your Vanguard, which is your soul, and putting it into the drop zone, right? Those are the 2 main ways you pay for abilities. Obviously, there's other costs. I made an example of in the prior slide about how you can retire a rear guard. Something like that was definitely a cost as well. But I wanted to talk about the more generic ones being Counterblast and Soul Blast. And then there's obviously their inverse, which are Soul Blast or Soul Charge and Counter Charge. These are just flipping what you would do to pay a cost, right? So sometimes you can countercharge and that'll flip a card back face up, which will allow you to counterblast it again. Soul Charge is just to take a card from the top of your deck, put it into your soul, right? So that you have soul for later. Then let's talk about trigger units. So there's 5 different trigger units, which we talked about in the previous episode. You can have 16 of these in your deck, and they have greater shield value than most normal units. These are the cards that you will be using to guard most of the time. You really don't want to use normal units to guard unless that is their role. There's certain normal units that just have abilities that give them extra shield so that they can be better for guarding. But you primarily will be using trigger units. And then there are effect trigger units. As you can see here on the front and the draw, they gain extra shield as a continuous ability in the guardian circle. And they both require your opponent's Vanguard to be at grade 3. So the front would be able to guard for 20k, and the draw would be able to guard for 10k. And then in the case of the critical trigger, it has an auto ability that happens at the end of the battle weight boost. It will go into soul, and then give one of your units +2 until the end of turn, right? These are the three that are pretty much in every nation. I don't know if all the collaboration sets have all three of these. I know some of them do, but the six main nations will have it. I think Shaman King has it, and I think Record of Ragnarok has it. I don't know if Token Rambu does, but there's more than just these three. There is a variety of heal triggers with different effects. But besides that, I don't think there is other effects for heals, for fronts, crits, or draws. It's just these three at the moment. Then we move on to order cards. There's three different ones, those being normal, set, and blitz. Uh, you're only allowed to play one of these a turn. In the case of normal and set order, blitz orders are played at a different time, so there's that, right? Then there's certain nations that love certain types of orders, like Brant, for example, loves set orders, and Sarkea uses normal orders. So normal orders are activated during the main phase. This is the only time they can be played, and they give you some sort of bonus effect. In the case of the one of here, you can counterblast one to choose one of your units, give it +5, and then you can choose a Virina from your drop and put it into your hand, right? So it allows you to give something power and gets you a card back. Then we have set orders. These orders stick around on your board and have effects on your battlefield or activated effects, right? As you can see, this one has an auto for when it's put into the order zone, and then it has a continuous in the order zone that gives your grade 2 boost. See, this is an example of a way that a non-grade 0, grade 1 would gain boost or would gain a different skill than it would normally have. Then we have blitz orders. These orders are usually for guarding. They can neg your opponent's Vanguard or boost your own Vanguard's power. And even some of them can be Sentinels, like as you can see here with Elementaria Sanctitude, which you can only play one copy of, but it is a Sentinel nonetheless. I think it is different from the other Sentinels in that if your opponent's Vanguard has triple drive, you do not have to pitch to use its perfect guard effect, which is very good. Then moving on, we have the Regalis pieces. There are currently only 3 of them available, and you can only play one copy of any of them. I know the Chalice allows you to activate Persona rights, so if as long as you haven't ridden that turn, you're able to play that. Then we have Forbidal Surrogate, which allows you to search for a total of 2 grade 3 or 4 units with different names, reveal them, and then you can call all the grade 3s and then put the grade 4s into your hand, and if you search your deck, you shuffle. This deck, or this one specifically, is seeing a lot of play in grade 4 decks that did get a boost because of it. And then we have Evergreen Transfer, which is currently the least played of the 3, because although it is pretty pretty interesting, it's a blitz order that is supposed to help with the problems that the overtrigger can produce, but it really doesn't achieve that. It just makes it so that anything with 100 million power loses a crit, which is good, but sometimes, like some of the other effects, like the Dark States OT gives your Vanguard a crit permanently, so that doesn't really solve the problem there. You know, the Dragon Empire one allows your Vanguard to restand, and since this only stops a unit with 100 million or more power, you could give the power to a rear guard while still restanding your Vanguard, which would mean that this thing, although stopping that rear guard, it doesn't stop the scarier threat, which is the opponent's Vanguard. So that's why it doesn't see as much play. But currently, if you're not playing grade 4s, usually you go for a Gradle, and if you are playing grade 4s, you go into Circuit. I do love these cards. They're part of the Glitter storyline, which I'll talk a little bit more later on. But very, very interesting cards. This is an interesting thing they introduced very recently. And then let's look at some archetypes now. So you kind of see some decks. Maybe you want to play some of these 3. I think there is these 3, and then I introduced one more. So first off is Crossover Dress in Nirvana. This is a protagonist deck. This is kind of the deck we've been using for the examples throughout. Uh, this is a deck that I play personally. I think I have a profile of this deck up on the channel right now. Um, I think is one of the I think it is the first video we uploaded. Uh, it is a very strong deck. It allows you to turn a Trickstar and a Prayer Dragon, which is that grade 1, into a new unit and combining them into a crossover dress unit, which is the Mirror's Virina. Um, the Prayer Dragon doesn't have to correlate to the crossover dress unit. It can be any Prayer Dragon, right? I know that it does seem like it should be the Mirror because, right, Mirror Virina's and that Prayer Dragon clearly is mirrors, but it doesn't really matter. It just has to be a Prayer Dragon, right? And there's a variety of Prayer Dragons. I don't know the exact number. I think I'm in the range of like 12 or 14 different ones. And as far as Virina's, the crossover dress, I think there's about 6 or 7. Um, but this is a very fun deck, and it is the protagonist's deck, so it will constantly get support, which, if you want to just always be getting new cards, this is a pretty good choice, right? And then there is the regular Overdress deck, which I don't show here, but um, it was essentially this, except you wouldn't need the Prayer Dragons. And that deck has a grade 3 and a grade 4 version of it. So if you wanted to try that one, you could try that one. But personally, I would recommend the Java deck. It's not as expensive as some of the other decks, so you could probably pick it up for under 200 bucks. Maybe even less than that. I haven't really looked up at the prices of it since I usually just buy cases or splits of stuff. Don't really have to worry about that. Next, we have Cardinal and the World cards, right? This is a Brandgate deck that revolves around having multiple world cards, which are set orders, and gaining effects based on it. The mechanic is called Dark Knight and Abyssal Dark Knight. Abyssal Dark Knight happens when you have more than two of these world cards active, right? And prior to this grade 3 world card, I think all the others had on place effects. I think you could draw a card, you could make a token, you could retire something. This is the first one that had a auto ability that would work whenever a token would be placed, right? And then Orpheus Regis cares about the number of them in your set order zone, right? This is also a very fun deck. It's a very strong deck that is receiving a new form in set 12, I believe, or 13. This is a strong deck. I haven't been able to play it, especially because Orpheus Regis is very expensive, but he is receiving the trial deck, so that might lower the price of it a little bit. Um, I would recommend this deck if you just want a straight linear path to play. This deck, all it cares about really is all that you really have to keep track of is play a world card as soon as you're able to. I think the lowest grade you can play is grade 2, so you would have to wait until you're at grade 2. But once you can do that, you just want to keep playing one every turn, right? It can output a lot of power. This is a very, very strong deck. Then we're going to talk about the glitter decks. I mentioned this when we were talking about the Regalis pieces. There is a glitter deck in all 6 of the main nations. Um, I show the Brant one here mostly because it's probably the strongest um, of the 6 glitter decks. They introduced dual nation units, as you can see here, with Obfuscate being part of both Keter Sanctuary and Brandgate. These decks have more interesting design than some of the others. Some of the others from the main storyline. Personally, these are my favorite decks. I bought a case of set 11 simply for that fact that they're getting support again. I think every time that glitter decks have received direct support, I've either bought a case or bought so much of that product that I've been able to build all the decks. But these are some of my favorites. I love the concept of them. Um, I think you could probably get some of them on the cheaper end, right? Although they are very popular, I will say that. I know Ava is very popular, which is the card shown here. Um, there's things like the Greya, which you can go back to step 1 of this series to see them. Roroa, Tamayura, Chaos, Michu, those are all glitter decks. Um, And the interesting thing about these glitter units is that cards like Obfuscate have a regular effect that they can be used by anyone, and then they have a secondary effect which only activates if you have the corresponding Glitter Vanguard. So in his case, you can see he says Glitter Ava. So that ability will only work if your Vanguard is Ava and has the glitter mechanic. So they're very interesting. I would recommend them, but they are very expensive. A lot of the cards, a lot of the cards in this game are expensive, but if you really enjoy it, then I would suggest one of these. Then we have Alchemagic. Alchemagic is probably one of the more interesting ones. I know a lot of people love Alchemagic. It's one of the few decks that allows you to break the one order per turn rule, and it does that by allowing you to bind an order from your drop and adding its effect to the order you play for turn. Right. It's very strong. You can combo out cards. Think of it sort of like a Spellslinger deck in Magic if you've ever played something like that. I currently have a blue Zorga deck built, and I'm going to be upgrading into the Zorga Masks deck as soon as possible. The deck is very fun and very strong, having a lot of really, really good cards that have been printed over these past few years. But Alchemagic is another deck I would highly suggest for people, but this one is a little bit more complicated, so I wouldn't start with this one, but maybe once you get the hang of it, I would suggest playing something like Alchemagic. Alright, now let's talk about some useful sources that can help you more in your journey, in your knowledge of the game, maybe deck building, things like that. First off, we'll start with Decklog, which is the official Bushiroad uh, deck maker. I don't really know how to say it, but it has all the cards currently available in the English format, as well as having the cards in Japanese. You can also save your deck list on there, and then whenever you register for a tournament, you can just provide the deck code that they give you. It's a very useful source that I think Bushiroad is trying to use a little bit more. I think they just recently introduced something called Bushi Navi, which allows you to register for tournaments and stuff. But if you don't exclusively play Vanguard, they have things like Weiss Schwarz and Shadowverse on there right now, as well as other Japanese games, right? So this isn't for English people only, but Decklog is a source you should know. I provided the link there in case you wanted to go see it. Then let's move on to some YouTubers and people who I know that provide very good content. The first one being Black Rose Musketeer Drevlin. I don't actually know his name. I think they posted sometimes on their posts, but I haven't really seen it, and I don't know which one it is specifically. But they provide card reveals for upcoming sets. They provide update videos or update posts on things like the ban list, news about products, if we're getting things in English that Japan has gotten, promos, things like that. It's a very good source of information if you just want to gain knowledge of what is out there for you to see, what's going to come out in the future. I would definitely consider going on his Facebook page and just joining, because it's just he updates almost every day, does translations from Japanese to English, so I highly recommend this guy. Then we have Different Fight. Different Fight is an amazing card fighter who I think is currently living in Japan. I wrote that in there, but I'm not 100% sure if he's still in Japan or not. But he does news videos, he does discussion videos. He's someone that I've looked up to personally. Um, he is someone who I strive to be like, so hopefully, uh, if I enjoy him, maybe you will as well. So that'll give you a new person to watch. And then finally, there is the WCC, or the World Class Card Fighters. This is a group of players that provide things like deck profiles from Japan, as well as tournament results, and providing the deck list from the players in that tournament. They are a great source of content if you just want to like look, and they have timestamps on everything, so that's perfect for newer players to just go and be like, oh, I want to copy or I want to see like a bunch of Zorgo deck profiles, I'll have some there, or I want to see like Nirvana Java or Bastion or Ava or Orphis. They're incredible. They're very, very talented. There's a very, very big group or a very talented group of individuals. They also compete at major tournaments all the time. I know they do put out some incredible results. So they are a good source. I would say you should subscribe to them as well if you want to have that source of information available to you. But with that, I'm going to thank you all for sticking with me. This has been a new venture for me. We had just been doing deck profiles and gameplay for the beginning, so this is the first um, different step we're taking into other type of content. This one was predominantly just me because Kat has been busy. He does do a lot more manual labor than I do, so he does end up very tired. But I will try to get him back into more videos. He's tired all the time, and I can't really force him to come record with me, right? Even though he would be more than willing if I really asked him to. It's just that I don't want to do that to him. He's one of my closest friends, so I don't want to do that to him. But yeah, this has been interesting for me. I love providing information to people, so this has been great for me. I probably missed a bunch of stuff along the way. I probably could have organized this better, but I do generally believe that this could help people who are just getting into the game, maybe not feel so overwhelmed by all the information. That's why I divided it, even making certain things like super short, like the setup video being only 5 minutes. I just didn't want to overwhelm people with just like a bunch of information. That's why the first video was very long, but it was time stamped, and this video is going to be rather long as well. But I'm hoping that it'll help people understand the game. I'm not just trying to read off of the slides here. I want those to be information. If you just want to like go back and watch, you can pause at any point and just read the information I wrote there. Sometimes there's a little bit of helpful tips that I don't talk about because I'm trying to give you more information than not just what's on there. But thank you all. This has been Leo, and I hope you have a great rest of your week.